They thought they could just toss me aside with my daughter's coffin. But the reckoning came for all of them. My name is Jasper. I'm 34. And right now, I'm trying to find my way out of a nightmare no one in my family wants to admit happened. It took burying the person I loved most to uncover the truth about the very blood we share. Now, as I walk through the empty rooms of the wake, exactly where no one showed up to say a final goodbye, I realize the world around me has grown, darker, as if grief has lifted the veil of reality. Before we dive deeper, quickly tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps the channel a ton. Thanks. I can still remember the scent of the roses I placed in my daughter's hands as the coffin slowly descended into that heavy earth. It was the absolute end of everything we shared, the end of a bond no one around me understood, or at least pretended not to. My name is Jasper. Some see me as the woman left behind, the one who lost everything, the one who was left alone to bury her own heart. But no one truly knows how important Ava was to me. Ava wasn't just my daughter, she was the future I'd planted for us. Ava and I shared everything. Our secrets, our shared smiles in the simplest moments, our hands held tight to get through every new pain. The connection we had was almost telepathic. When she felt sick, I knew. When she was sad, my chest ached with hers. Behind that tiny skin, those hands that could barely hold a glass of milk, lived a soul full of light. The light my family chose to abandon, they vanished at the wake. Only the wind kept me company by the coffin. That day, no one from the family showed their face to say a last goodbye. Only the heavy earth falling onto my Ava's body and the shared silence between me and the grave remained. At the moment of saying goodbye, I realized the full extent of their abandonment. My own family was alive and well, sharing drinks and smiles, while Ava's coffin descended into darkness. I knew nothing would ever be the same. The pain burning in my chest gave me a purpose, to prove to everyone that nobody escapes the consequences of their actions. The family who turned their backs on me, who chose their own comfort instead of saying goodbye to Ava, would be confronted with what they did. In that very moment, instead of getting lost in my grief, I decided to use that pain to find the truth. Still trying to pull myself together, I got a call from my cousin Rachel, the same one who shared all the family secrets. Rachel's voice trembled on the other end of the line. It was a quick call, almost a whisper, as if she was afraid to say too much. But what she said was etched into my memory forever. There had been a huge fight in the family before the wake. A discussion no one wants me to find out about. A discussion that, from what Rachel implied, reveals exactly what they were trying to hide. With a heavy heart, my soul filled with doubts and rage starting to consume me, I realized that the path to justice for Ava began there. That phone call would be the key to proving to everyone that my family's abandonment wasn't just an oversight. It was a choice they would have to pay for. I didn't expect to get anything from that family after everything that happened, but 2 days after Ava's burial, the lawyer, a name that left a bitter taste in my mouth, had a box delivered to my doorstep. A heavy box, dusty at the edges, as if it had been forgotten in the back of a closet. When I placed it on the kitchen table, the silence around me became almost oppressive. Only the wind whistling through the window cracks shared the space with me. With trembling hands, I removed the tape sealing the box. Inside, along with some document folders, were letters from Ava. Little letters she wrote to me to tell me how much she loved me, to tell me that despite everything the illness made her lose, the love we shared was still alive. One by one, I pulled out these messages. One asked me not to be alone after she was gone. Another shared her wish for our family to stay together, despite everything. Those words were alive to me, as if Ava was still speaking to my heart. Amidst the letters, there were also documents no one wants me to have my hands on. Papers proving that the lawyer, along with the doctor and certain family members, made several decisions in my name. Ava's illness required specific procedures, a combination of medical treatment and special care that, if carried out, would have at least prolonged my little one's life. But the family chose the cheaper route, a way out that saved them money at the cost of a life. I was kept out of everything. Those meetings, the authorizations, everything happened behind my back. a woman trying to save her own daughter's life, was excluded from the negotiations. Why? Because for them, it was more convenient if no one questioned anything. And untreated, illness dies with the patient. And with the patient, responsibilities are also buried. With my chest trying to contain the pain that threatened to consume me, I picked out one of the letters to reread. In it, Ava talked about her own future, about how she still believed she would be able to win. But the family turned their backs on that possibility. The illness was treatable. It just required resources and interest. They left Ava behind to save money, to make their own lives easier. Now that the lawyer was sending everything to me by mail, trying to get rid of his own involvement, he was putting the path to proving the truth right into the hands of a grieving woman. That was the turning point. The family thought no one would ever know. But they were dead wrong. That envelope, along with Ava's letters, would be the key to getting justice. With Ava's letters in hand and my chest trying to hold back the pain, I decided it was time to confront the family for an explanation. I knew nothing would ever be the same. That path we shared was left behind with Ava's coffin. But despite everything, despite the pain, the grief, and the abandonment, there was still a part of me that demanded the truth, that demanded an explanation for so much cruelty. I knocked on the door of the house where I was born, the same door I'd walked through countless weekends for lunch with everyone, to give and receive hugs, to share triumphs. Now, as my fingers touched the doorbell, the place itself exuded a chilling coldness. The light on in the living room flickered as if no one there wanted to let me in. They answered after a long time. Rachel stood in the doorway, trying to seem distant, almost as if we shared the same blood by accident. Behind her, in the living room, the lawyer, the family doctor, and my own brother, who barely met my gaze, were all present. All the people who had shared in the same decision were there, trying to play deaf to my questions. With the letters in my hands, I asked, "You had a way to save Ava. Why did you leave her behind?" The room grew heavy. For a moment, no one said anything, until Rachel stepped back and said, "That's not your business. It's family business." That hit harder than a punch. I was Ava's family. I was her mother. But to them, I was a problem. A woman who wants to know too much, who wants to expose what no one wants to say out loud. They started humiliating me, saying that what they were trying to do was best for everyone, that saving Ava would be a waste of money. That prolonging the treatment would give me false hope. One by one, their words struck me like blades, but they also made it clear they were trying to get rid of a subject they wanted to bury with Ava's body. With a heavy heart, after being kicked out of the house where I was born, I realized I had become a pariah to them, someone to be removed, silenced. But as I walked back home, trying to find my way through the shadows of that new reality, my phone rang. An anonymous call. A heavy voice said, "I know the whole truth." They thought they were free to forget, but they were dead wrong. Someone knew what really happened, and that person would share everything with me. The call came to prove that the path to justice wasn't lost yet. It was just beginning. I spent the whole night trying to find a way out of that labyrinth of pain and injustice in the messages, in Ava's letters, and in my own phone recordings. The anonymous call kept echoing in my head. I know the whole truth, but who could this person be? Why did they choose to tell me exactly at this moment, after everything that happened? With a heavy heart, I switched on the bedside lamp, searching for a single point of light in the darkness that enveloped me. One by one, I reread Ava's messages, trying to find between the lines the name of someone who shared our grief. Someone who knew what was going on behind the scenes of that illness. That whole charade. Why did the doctor do what he did? Why did the lawyer stay silent? Why did my own family turn their backs on me? I laid everything out on the table. A mix of letters, text messages, documents, a tangled web of secrets that was finally starting to make sense. Behind the facade of a united family and a doctor working for his patient's best interests were negotiations, partnerships, and a pact of silence. Ava's illness wasn't a final chapter for them. It was a business deal, a combination of self-interest, money, and shared convenience. I was bearing the brunt of the loss, while the world around me kept trying to silence me. But instead of shutting up, I decided to use everything I knew to give Ava's name a voice. So I shared the pain nobody wanted to hear on social media. I posted messages revealing what the family did, sharing Ava's letters to prove that everything could have been avoided. A wave of support came from everywhere. Messages from people who'd gone through grief, who'd lost someone to illness, to negligence, to pure indifference. They wanted me to keep my mouth shut, to leave Ava's name behind along with the dust in that grave. But the grief shared by the world strengthened the idea that my daughter's memory wouldn't be erased. The pain of losing a piece of myself gave way to a new mission. A mission to prove that nobody controls the narrative forever. Still trying to. Find the name of the person who made the call. I rummaged through the bottom of a box with Ava's messages. That's when I found a photo. An image shared by the doctor and the lawyer, arm in arm, like old friends. A fishy partnership nobody dared question. Why were they together? What business did they share? That picture made it clear that nothing happened by chance. With my heart pounding, I realized I was much more involved in this story than I'd imagined. The partnership in the photo was the tip of an iceberg of corruption, and it wouldn't stay in the shadows forever. With the photo in my hands and my pain as fuel, I followed a trail of messages, emails, and call records that they were trying to make disappear along with Ava's name. I had to focus, find a connecting thread, a flaw in the story they were trying to make me swallow. The doctor's partnership with certain family members appeared more and more as the key to proving everything was orchestrated. I followed the trail of messages to the doctor's office. He kept trying to make it seem like a place of healing, of care, of redemption. But for me, it was the exact opposite, the place where Ava's fate was sealed to serve the interests of a few people. I grabbed the recorder I kept with my phone, a small, almost invisible model, and turned it on before I went in. With my heart practically pounding out of my chest, I called for the doctor. He met me, trying to act calm, trying to make me believe that what happened was a tragedy, nothing more than an unfortunate incident. But he got nervous, stuttering a few times, trying to find a way to dodge the questions that were coming. With the recording rolling, I said, "I know what you did. I know you knew the treatment would give Ava a chance. Why did you choose to leave her behind?" He went pale as a ghost. For a period of heavy silence, you could almost hear his heart trying to find a way out of that situation. Then he said, "It wasn't supposed to be like this. But the insurance, the life insurance, it would be shared. Certain family members wanted the money for other needs." The confession hit like a knife. He admitted that he and certain family members were trying to use Ava's life insurance for their own benefit. My daughter's illness to them was a business, a transaction, a way to make a quick buck at the expense of a life that had barely begun. With the recorder still running, I let him talk, let him dig his own grave with his words. He cited names, amounts, and how the lawyer was in charge of preparing everything. So the money would fall into the hands of certain family members. A combination of self-interest, lack of scruples, and disrespect for their own flesh and blood. I knew that recording was the key to proving what they were trying to cover up. That doctor, along with the people who shared Ava's own name, were trying to use the insurance to make a killing. Now he had confessed everything. And nothing would ever be the same. They thought they were one step away from winning. But they were dead wrong. The truth was starting to come to light. With the recording in my hands, heavy as a rock in my chest, I decided it was time to confront the lawyer. He'd stayed in the shadows far too long, trying to manipulate everything so that Ava's name would be lost with the dust of that story. But he hadn't counted on the doctor himself, his accomplice, leaving behind a confession that no one could dispute. With my heart racing, I called him and told him exactly what he didn't expect to hear. "I know everything. The partnership to use the life insurance, Ava's illness being treated like a business. I'm going to prove to everyone what you did." He was silent on the other end of the line, trying to find a way to wriggle out of that situation, to say it was all a misunderstanding. But the silence spoke louder than he did. With the recording as my bargaining chip, I demanded he meet me face to face. An hour later, he arrived at the agreed-upon spot, a deserted parking garage corridor far from curious eyes. He came trying to appear confident, trying to use his reputation to intimidate me, to say he was untouchable. But he saw the look on my face. He saw that the game was up for him. I held the recorder in the palm of my hand as if it contained all the pain the family had put me through. "Apologize for what you did. Apologize so the world, so Ava, so no one forgets what you are. He took a step back, trying to dodge it, but he knew he couldn't. This was the end for him. Breathing heavily, he said, almost whispering, I apologize. An empty, forced expression, trying to contain his own panic. A confession for no one, for himself, to say he did what he did to serve personal interests, to use Ava's name as a path to wealth. But for me, for my daughter's memory, for the justice she deserved, it was at least a start, still. I knew he wouldn't let it go easily. No sooner had he turned his back and gotten into his car to disappear into the night than I received an anonymous call. A heavy voice, full of anger, said, "This isn't over yet. Now he wants you silenced for good." The family, the same one that shared Ava's name, was trying to shut me up permanently. They were trying to tell me the game wasn't over. It just got more dangerous. I knew they were trying to silence me, but I never imagined they'd go this far. I woke up in the middle of the night to the smell of burning rubber filling the hallway of the house. When I looked out the window, I saw my car engulfed in flames. A sinister bonfire sending a clear message. This is a warning. You're next. I rushed outside, trying to control the panic, trying to find what remained of what was once my car, the very reflection of everything I'd been fighting for. That twisted piece of metal was the last link to the period of my life before Ava. Now it had transformed into a monument of violence, of threats. This wouldn't silence me. I grabbed my phone and, trying to control the trembling in my hands, recorded a video sharing exactly what happened. I posted it on social media so the world would know they were trying to silence me, that they wanted to make the truth disappear along with me. A flood of support came almost automatically. Shares, messages of solidarity, showing that no one wants Ava's name to be forgotten. They wanted to make me disappear into the shadows. But for every new act of violence, for every new reprisal, the story grew stronger. The pain I shared on social media made it clear to everyone that the path to justice wouldn't be overcome by fear. With a heavy heart, despite everything, I also shared the reality of the situation. They're trying to silence me for good. They set my car on fire to send me a message. But I'm telling everyone, as long as I'm alive, no one can bury Ava's memory. The messages of support kept coming, sharing the video, trying to shed light on the story they wanted to bury along with my family's name. But along with the messages of solidarity, the dark side also appeared. Sinister messages, threats that the next step would be my life. I knew they were trying to make me disappear. The family, who shared Ava's name, wants to tell everyone that the matter is closed, that no one wants to know what happened. But the pain of losing a piece of me strengthened what was left of my soul to fight to the very end. In the midst of everything, a trusted confidant reached out to me. A late-night call, laced with urgency. They want to make you disappear. You need to prepare yourself. In that moment, I knew the next step would be the most dangerous yet. But I also knew there was no turning back. The truth was all I had left. I knew the doctor and the lawyer were in cahoots with the family, trying to pull a fast one, but proving it was a whole different ballgame. Behind the messages, the recordings, and Ava's life insurance policy, there were shared hands trying to profit from my daughter's memory. With everything I'd been gathering, recordings, messages, documents, I managed to prove that the doctor and the lawyer were attempting fraud. A partnership to use Ava's name as a business. A scheme involving certain family members trying to collect the life insurance, then make it all disappear, trying to make it look like a medical accident. I was sharing everything I knew on social media, trying to shine a light on the connections that were trying to stay hidden in the shadows. But what no one knew was that for the past few nights, I'd been working with a trusted police officer to set a trap. He shared my interest in justice. He also knew the scheme involved several people, some too influential to be easily touched. With him, I hatched a plan to set up a meeting. The idea was for the lawyer to show up to settle the payment with certain family members. He thought I'd back down, that the money would be enough to shut me up. But he didn't know the officer would be there to record everything. With my heart practically pounding out of my chest, I confirmed the place, time, and amount. The idea was to give the lawyer exactly what he wanted, a way for him to expose himself, to prove they were trying to buy my silence to cover up their crime. They wanted to use the money to make Ava's name disappear, along with their own responsibilities. But what they were trying to do was exactly what would give me the key to proving everything. When he showed up to give me the bribe, the officer would move in to catch him red-handed. I knew it was risky. That he, along with certain family members, could use everything to incriminate me, to say I was also involved in the scheme. But the officer gave his word that he would be there to prove otherwise, to tell the world that everything I did was to expose the truth. With the location and time set, the lawyer sent me a new message. Money for silence. Just show up alone. He thought he controlled me, that he'd be able to buy his way to freedom. But he didn't know that this time, he was falling into the trap we'd set for him. The day of the meeting arrived, and I was more nervous than ever. I knew it could be the last time they'd see me around, not because I would give up, but because the family and their allies were willing to do anything to silence me. The trap had to be perfect. The officer stayed hidden in the shadows, camera rolling, ready to record every word, every gesture. I walked into the agreed-upon location, a discreet cafe away from prying eyes, and it wasn't long before he appeared, the lawyer, with that fake smile plastered on his face. He arrived looking calm, trying to hide his nervousness as he pulled a folder from his bag. "I brought what we agreed on," he said, placing a thick envelope on the table. "This is to ensure you forget all about this. No one needs to get hurt." I recorded everything. Every word he spoke was a direct hit against the wall of silence they were trying to build around the truth. "You think money can erase what you did to Ava? I won't stop until the world knows what you are." He tried to convince me it was better to accept, that I'd lose everything if I continued this fight. But I wasn't alone. I had the police on my side, the recording in my favor, and the growing support of people who were starting to hear my story. As soon as he tried once more to persuade me to keep quiet, the officer appeared. He turned on his camera and announced that he was being recorded. The lawyer went white, speechless, as I felt the adrenaline course through every part of my body. I posted the recording on social media immediately. The response was overwhelming. Shares, comments, messages of support that showed this story wasn't just mine, but belonged to everyone who had ever been betrayed and silenced. Overnight, the family, once seen as respected and beloved, began to be questioned, judged, isolated, all thanks to the courage to expose the truth and not allow another injustice to remain hidden. But despite the victory, I knew the worst was yet to come. The family's reputation was in shambles, but they weren't going to just vanish. The game had gone public, and the cards were on the table. The impact of the recording was immediate. Soon, authorities opened formal investigations against the doctor, the lawyer, and some family members. Accusations of fraud and negligence began to fill newspapers and social media. The same family that tried to hide everything was now in the spotlight, forced to face the consequences of their actions. Every step of the investigation seemed to accelerate a gear I never imagined would be so close to turning. I listened to testimonies, saw documents being delivered, and followed everything closely. I didn't just want justice for Ava's death. I wanted the world to know how deliberately the truth had been buried. It was a battle bigger than me, and I was determined to win. But even with the evidence against them, the family didn't give up easily. They started using everything they could to try and defend themselves. What caught me off guard was seeing my daughter's name being used as a bargaining chip. They tried to twist the story, saying I was exaggerating, that it was all just personal revenge, an attempt to profit from Ava's death. It was a low blow. They wanted to turn my daughter's name, the very reason all of this started, into a weapon against me, as if I were responsible for destroying a reputation they themselves had built with lies and manipulations. Inside, the pain grew, but so did my determination. I couldn't let them use Ava against me. That name was sacred, and I was willing to do anything to protect her memory, even if it meant facing even more cruel attacks. On social media, the support remained strong, but I felt the pressure mounting. They wanted to wear me down. They wanted me to give up. But what they didn't know is that every attack only made me stronger, more focused on getting justice. Now, with official accusations against them, I knew the war was just beginning. The family was trying to manipulate every last detail to get away unscathed. Using Ava's name as a shield was their last resort, and I couldn't let that happen. The family wants to use my daughter's name as a bargaining chip to defend themselves, and that's going to open a wound I wasn't prepared to face. The pain I carried inside me needed to be heard, needed to be felt by those who thought this story was just family gossip. I decided to open my heart to the world, to reveal every piece of what happened to Ava, the illness that tried to steal her life, the messages of love she sent me even in the most difficult moments, the recordings that documented everything the family tried to hide, the documents that showed how I was left out of every decision. It wasn't easy. Reopening these wounds to show everyone how alone I was, trying to save my daughter, without support from those I thought would be by my side, left me vulnerable. But I knew it was the only path to justice. I shared the messages Ava sent me. Little. Phrases, drawings, her voice asking for help, trying to cling to life. Every file I posted made the internet pause. People started to understand that this wasn't just a scandal, it was a real tragedy. I showed the recordings of conversations where the doctor admitted he could have done more, how the lawyer and family conspired to profit from the insurance, and how I was constantly left out. Official documents showed their omission, the deliberate wrong decisions made. As I shared all of this, I felt the support grow. The community, previously indifferent, began to take a stand, to ask questions, to demand answers. I was no longer alone in this fight, but the most important thing was to make it clear. Ava wasn't just a number, a forgotten victim. She was my daughter, a life that mattered, that deserves justice. I needed everyone to understand this so that no one else would go through what I did. At the same time the truth was spreading, I felt the family's pressure mounting, attacks, attempts to discredit my story, to turn the victim into the culprit. But I resisted, firm in my purpose. And finally, when it seemed the world was listening, came the news that changed everything. The court granted the arrest warrant for the doctor, the lawyer, and the family members involved. It was a decisive step for this story to have the outcome I always wanted. Real justice, not just empty words. When the news of the arrests broke, I felt a mix of relief and an emptiness I couldn't name. The family who tried to hide everything, who left me alone in the worst pain of my life, was finally facing the consequences. The doctor, the lawyer, those members who played with my daughter's life were behind bars. It wasn't just a personal victory. It was a clear message to everyone who thought they could manipulate and silence those who suffer. Justice, even if delayed, had prevailed. And as much as I wished it could bring Ava back, knowing her name was cleared and that she wouldn't be forgotten gave me the strength to move forward. For months, the headlines followed every step of the process. I continued to share my truth, talking about Ava, about the courage she had until the end. Every message of support I received was a reminder that my fight wasn't in vain. But in the quiet of the early morning, when the house was empty and the lights were out, the pain would embrace me again. It was then that I decided to say goodbye in the way Ava deserved. Not with hate, but with love. I remembered the morning. She laughed for the first time, the way she held my finger tight as if trying to tell me everything would be okay. I kept that memory in the safest place in my heart, a refuge for the difficult days. It wasn't a final farewell, but a step towards learning to live with her absence. Justice had played its part, but I needed to learn to live without my daughter by my side. This was my way of honoring Ava, fighting for her as long as I could, and letting her love guide me to what would come next. Even with justice served, the void left by Ava opens a new internal battle that Jasper will have to face. What do you think the next steps for healing and moving forward might look like?